Welcome to part two of my video, which I showed the other day, entitled New York City's Special Education's Day of Infamy. And for those of you who did not see it, just welcome. All right, if you recall, at the end of the video, I suggested that everybody Google Lucy and Ethel in the Candy Factory. Lucy, of course, is Lucille Ball, and there was a tremendous episode that came out on September 15th, 1952, and I said that if you look at this video, you don't have to be a genius in special education to know what's going on. Just the mindset of a 10-year-old, because art imitates life. And boy, in this video, she really imitated the life of what goes on in special education. So let me first tell you about the video, all right? And then we'll compare. So her and Lucy are in the candy factory, and their job is to stand in front of a conveyor belt, and as the candy comes out, their job was simply to wrap the candy and put it on its way, and it goes into the packing room. Sounds simple enough. Well, after a few moments, the speed of the candy was faster, and they kept wrapping it faster. Finally, Lucy says something to the effect, "We're in over our heads," or "This is a battle that we can't win," okay? And I ask you, how many times in life do you say, "Gee, we're in over our heads, this is a battle we can't win, we bit off more than we can chew"? All right, so this was very similar. So they're getting befuddled. All of a sudden, the belt stops, and they wondered what happened. Well, they're scooping up all the candy. They put it in their blouses, they put it in their mouth, they put it in their hats, okay? And the manager comes in, and they can't talk. And the manager who's standing behind them doesn't really see this. And she says, "How's it going?" They go, yeah, oh, it's terrific. Okay, so the manager says, "Speed it up a little." And this is the picture from, I got this out of the TV Guide back then. You see Lucy and Ethel, look at their mouths. I don't know how close you can see it. And the manager's saying, "Yeah, speed it up a little." Okay. So the manager leaves, and it's sped up, and they're totally befuddled. It's like a log jam, all right? And that's how that episode ends. So now, let me talk about that. Lucy and Ethel, to me, represent the attorneys that want to try the cases when there's an overload. Parents complain. Remember what I said? Complaints increasing, children weeping, due process at a stall, okay, or a crawl. Well, that's what's happening here. So they're the attorneys, right? Okay. Now the candy, that represents the individual cases, all right? You see the analogy? So what do? Now, if you speak to a 10-year-old, how would you solve the problem? 10-year-old would say, well, there's a couple of things we could do. Put more people on there, right? Sure. Or slow down the candy. Well, you know what the Department of Education's been doing all along? They're not putting more people on. Well, recently they're trying to hire a few more. No, they want to just simply slow down the candy. Well, you know what? That goes back to the school, all right, where these people are deciding, should we have special ed or not for these kids, give them the services. And finally, after maybe a decade or so, the parents are fed up. And that's why they're opening their mouths and they're filing cases. Okay? So that's where that stands. Hello again. I took a small break, changed my top. I just want to tell you something. Getting back to this picture with Lucy and Ethel, this is so symbolic of what goes on at the Department of Education. They're covering up the truth from the supervisor. All right? Well, eventually the truth is going to come out. That candy is going to pile up and somebody has to say something. And as far as the truth, I have something that represents the truth. This is a report. I know you can't see it from here, but I'm going to give you the information. A report, an external review. That means it's not from the inside, it's from the outside. External review of the New York City Impartial Hearing Office. It was submitted to the Department of Ed on February 22nd. I guess that's George's birthday, right? 2019. And it was submitted by Desdidi Merced. If I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I am sorry. And he's for external review of special education solutions. Now, underneath the video, I will put the information down. And all you have to do is Google, and you'll see it. 49 pages. And isn't it ironic? It's 49 pages. You know, just like the 49ers out in California, they were looking for gold. I got news for you. This is gold. Education gold. What's in here? It'll blow your minds. And it's pretty simple. Okay? So I just wanted to put that out. Now, getting back to the case at hand, as far as the attorneys that have to see all this stuff, let's talk about what they get paid. Why it's so difficult. Okay? Well, there are two things I found out. On page 40, their rate. Now, it's $300 a day for 7.5 hours. Now, when you do the math, it comes out to be about $40 an hour. In fact, here's the crazy thing. Do you know the last time that that the Department of Ed redid the salary? How about 20 years ago? Rudy Giuliani was the mayor. How do you expect to get people into work? And these are professionals. They went to law school. They got a law degree. They passed the New York State bar examination. Then they come in and they're making 40. Now there's another part. We have some attorneys, a number of them, who are independent, which means that they can come and go as they please. $300. If you work an hour, that's $100. 2 hours, $200. 3 hours, $300. Right? How about 4 hours? Oh, $400. No, it's not $400, folks. $300's the max. So take your $300 for a 4-hour hearing, that's $75. What about a 5-hour hearing? It happens. So that's $60. Now, there are sometimes they could luck out. They could have a 3-hour hearing, make $300, another 3 hours, okay? You don't know what's going on. So here they are. Should I go in today? This case looks like it's going to be 5 hours. Screw that. I'm not going to do it. I'll just postpone it. And they're not questioned because they can come and go as they please. All right, now, to add insult to injury, the working conditions. Do you know, for example, that most teachers, a vast majority, when they leave the system, it's not because of the pay. Right now, they're making about $108,000, $109,000. Pay is fine. It's the working conditions that really drive them out. Well, what about the working conditions for these people who passed the bar in New York State? Okay? Well, it's 110 Livingston Street. Now, you can Google 110 Livingston Street. It was built in 1925, sold under the Bloomberg administration in 2003. Several floors are still kept for the Department of Ed, but mainly the second floor is where they do all the action. All right? Now, the fact of the matter is, which is really, you can't even put it into words. They come in the summertime, right? And it is hot. The ventilation system basically sucks. Wintertime, it's just the opposite. It's cold. All right? And if you're lucky to get a room, guess what? The walls are paper thin. You're talking, it's very important. The next room, you hear what's going on. It's crazy. So what do? Sometimes, by the way, they open up the door to get some ventilation. Then everyone, it's not good. Okay? In addition, a lawyer, he brings all his papers and everything. The good news is he's allowed to store it there. The bad news is there are no locks. With all the buildings in New York City, they can't find additional places. I'll tell you what, the new mayor that comes in, how about the Tweed Courthouse? Huh? Let's get rid of the dead wood there. You know what the dead wood is? These pencil pushers, they go around, they're making 6 figures or high 5 figures. Get rid of them. Give them an option. You know what your option is? Go back into the classroom or quit. You know what? They don't want to go back into the classroom. All right, so I just want you to keep that in mind. 2 big negatives. The negatives are the pay and the working conditions. And these are professionals. All right? You know what I was thinking? Here I am advocating for the lawyers, and I'm not a lawyer. I never even took a course in law. All right? Yet, the reality is I am a lawyer. Well, yes, and all of you are lawyers. We're lawyers in the court of public opinion, and we're allowed to speak our minds, and that's what I did. All right, now let me get, I have some charts. There are about 11 charts they put in here. I'm not going to show you 11. I'm just going to show you 3. Okay? I think you can handle 3. The first one. Let's see so everybody sees this without getting blocked out. Okay, this is the average case length. All right? So in 2014-15, actually, de Blasio became mayor in 2014. And at that time, he inherited from the Bloomberg administration the average length of a case was 150 days. All right, let's put that in perspective. Federal law, 75 days it takes until everything is done and the kids start getting services. All right, parent files a complaint, 150. So this is double. This is not on de Blasio. This was Bloomberg. All right? And now, look what happens from year to year. 160, 180. I rounded it off to the nearest 10. 200, 225, and 259. I'm going to get that 259, by the way, does not come from the review. It comes from an unbelievable article. It's called New York State Changes Course on Plan to Address Backlog of Special Education Cases. It comes from an online newspaper, phenomenal, Chalkbeat, okay? And that's where I got the 259. All right, now let's take a look. Look how it's going up, right? On the other hand, outside of New York City, the rest of New York State, they started off the same year at 115 days. 114, 14, it's pretty flatline. Here it does go up a little. This number, I don't have that. They didn't put that into the big review over here, okay? And you know what I thought of things being what they are? Remember when the pandemic started to get really crazy, and you watch Governor Cuomo every day? We want to flatten the curve, flatten the curve. Well, if you put this on a chart, look at the curve. This is a curve going way up. This one is pretty flat, not where we want it to be. So you got, this is Cuomo, this is de Blasio. All right. What do you think of that, folks? And who knows? It can keep going higher and higher. In fact, it can even go off the charts, literally. Okay? Now, as they say, and I can't think of everything at one time, there's an expression, justice delayed is justice denied. Can you imagine waiting 260 days until your case is heard? What is that? Divide that, that's about 8 months. A lot can happen in 8 months. The kids can get even worse. So when you're paying the parents or taking care of the service, you got to do more. One of my favorite all-time expressions, a stitch in time saves 9. You know what that means? You got to tear in your clothing. All right? 1 stitch fixes it. But if you wait, it's 9 stitches. That's the problem. So where do you start? I'll tell you, you start as soon as the kids get into school. When they're in kindergarten or pre-K, that's when you start looking. And that's when you pounce on the situation and you resolve it as much as you can. You don't wait until all years, middle school or high school. Oh, we got a problem. Well, it's just like the candy. The candy piles up and it's going to come out. All right? So, and by the way, it's really funny. Average case length. Look at the word average. Look at the last 4 letters, rage. And there should be plenty of rage about what's going on. All right, that's one chart. In line with that, like I said, these attorneys are independent. So they come in, I want an extension. All right, notice. And by the way, SY is school year, okay? And ROS is rest of the state. So what we're doing is we're comparing New York City with the rest of the state. New York City, up and up and up she rises. It's just like we got to flatten the curve. And the rest of the state, it's low. In fact, here's the crazy thing. There are 300,000 special ed kids in New York State outside of New York City. New York City, it's about 225,000. All right? The numbers are cockeyed. The rest of the state, only, it's under 1,000. Is it under? Yeah, okay, here, well, yeah. I don't know what happened over here, but it should be 110. But anyway, look how low it is. Look how high it is here. What's going on? Now, many times, people, you've heard apples and oranges. I would bet that the administration in New York said, oh, Mr. Band, you're comparing apples and oranges. You can't compare us with the rest of the state. Oh, really? Where is that? Hang on a minute. Here we go. If there's one page in this report that'll blow your minds, it's page 11. You see, on page 11, they talk about 7 states. They're called the PAC-7, P-A-C. And they are all similar, apples and apples. What are the 7 states? Start on the west. California, Texas, Florida, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. All right. And I'm going to read to you. I want to read a quote on page 11. Let's see. The PAC-7 is a consortium of the 7 largest states that the National Association of State Directors of Special Education Incorporated determined to have both similar Demographics, that is, the general population, diversity, significant rural and intercity populations, and issues in the delivery of special education programs to its students with disabilities. So our mayor cannot say, oh, you can't compare us with California. Really? Los Angeles? Can't compare us with Illinois, Chicago. You think the kids in Chicago have it any better here? In the other states too. So it's apples and apples. In fact, it's apples versus the rotten apple. You know, New York is known as the Big Apple? Well, it's the big rotten apple when it comes to special education. Okay, so let's put that out of the way. Due process claims filed 2016, 2017. They used 1 year, but you'll get an idea. All right, now let's see what we could do here. New York State has 6,300. California, 4,500. I don't have to read the rest. All the states, all 7 states, minus New York City, 7,900 cases, due process, all right? New York City by itself, 5,800. What the heck is going on? Yeah, I'd like to know. Well, we talked about it. Pay them more and straighten up those buildings. My God, dark and dingy. All right. And how could I forget? The 7 states minus New York City, 135 million people. New York City, 8 million. All right. Well, let's just talk about special ed kids. New York, the 7 states, 2,200,000 special ed kids. New York City, 200,000. A ratio of 11 to 1. I ask you, is this a ratio of 11 to 1? If this is 5,800, let's say 6,000, times it by 11, that's 66,000. That's what this should be. It's not. Or we reverse it. If this is, say, 8,000, then this should be 1/11th of that. I'll tell you. They call it the Big Apple. I don't know. I don't know, folks. And let's see. Okay, we're getting towards the end. Now, I want to read to you part of the conclusion to this whole report, which I said you could certainly get, on page 49. In short, the review confirms that the New York State hearing system is in crisis, particularly because of the number of due process complaint filings in New York City. No kidding. Process failures in the NYC-IHO complicate an already fragile system. Much is needed. President John F. Kennedy once said, I'm quoting, "There are costs and risks to a program of action, but they are far less than the long-range risks and costs of comfortable inaction." Comfortable inaction. Comfortable inaction. All right. Now let me just say a few things. You know, there's an election coming up next year, right? As of now, there's about 20 Democrats who are running for mayor, threw their hat in the ring, and about 4 or 5 Republicans. Now, I don't really care who gets in. I want the job done. I'm sure everybody else does. All right. Now, the thing about politics, well, let me back it up a minute. There's an old expression. They change conductors, but the music is still the same. Well, we will change a conductor, but is the music going to be the same? Will the new guy come in, simply throw out the old and replace it? I mean, take the Central Board of Education there at Department of Ed, at the Tweed Courthouse. You know what you have to do? You have to get rid of the dead wood, the pencil pushers. I call it petrified wood. And you give them a choice. And the choice is very simple. I may have said this before, I don't know. The choice is go back into the classroom, okay, or find another job. That's it. Now, politics being what it is, we know it's that quid pro quo. You do for me, I do for you, this for that. And the problem is that the kids are at the bottom of the food chain, all right? And, however, and they don't vote, but their parents do. And you got the parents of 200,000 plus special ed kids, all right? And I hope that they think and not just go along with the crowd in terms of getting a mayor that's going to do the right thing for the kids. All right, and that's it. And by the way, look underneath the video because from time to time I put comments in, my own comments. You could put yours too. Take care.